Hey everybody, Gavinsky here. Welcome back to another episode of Gavinsky's Tutorials. Today I'm going to do a walkthrough of GridStep, a Midi plugin for iPad and iPhone. This currently only runs on iPad OS or iOS 17.6 and higher, by the way. It'd be nice if the dev could make it run on older devices, but that's what it runs on currently. So this came out a few weeks ago. It flew totally under the radar, and it's probably good that it did, to be honest, because I think when it came out, it really wasn't great. But it's improved so much over the last few weeks, and the dev, Joe, just a shout out to him, super nice guy and really open to feedback. I've given a lot of feedback on this, and I think it's really improved. So there are a lot of Midi sequencers out there, but this has a few pretty cool features. And I've been finding it, finally, as it improved, pretty enjoyable to work with. So here, I'm using one of the really interesting features of this, which is this. If we go into the settings here, you can see that there is a setting for trigger advance, right? So when enabled, incoming MIDI notes advance the sequencer one step at a time instead of syncing to host tempo, right? So this is based on the SH101 sequencer. So there are other apps that do that. For example, one really cool MIDI sequencer called Midi Steps by Art Kearns. Mind you, that one is not available on the EU app stores at the moment. Such a pity because it's really cool, but slightly different features anyway. So that's really interesting, that feature. I wish that every sequencer had it. What's another thing that has it? For example, Woodpecker has it, which I did a video on a while ago. I did a video on MIDI steps, by the way, on my Patreon too, a few days ago or a week ago or something. Really cool app. But yeah, now what we got here, I'm using Fugue Machine to feed MIDI into this. So this instance of Fugue Machine, which I also have a video on my Patreon, just put up yesterday, by the way, 45 minutes long video. Here I'm using the MIDI from this to trigger these two instances of GridStep. So one of the things was this resized really terribly when it came out, and now it resizes pretty well. It's really quite good. You sometimes have to play around with it a little bit at certain sizes to get everything in there, but it generally works very well. So that's fabulous. But you see here, for example, look, this bottom part is a little bit cut off, so it's not perfect, But it's good. It's good in that regard. So this is just so interesting, to be able to use different sequencers to drive the way this advances through its sequences. And one nice thing is, if we look at the settings, if you see here, if I drag down, we have an option, will any note trigger it? Or, if you want, you can set a specific note that will trigger it, right? Let's see. Resized and gone a bit mad there. Let's see. Specific note. Oh God, look at that. Yeah, that needs to be worked on. I have not actually tried that before, but that's very difficult to select the note there from this menu. That's not working right. Anyway, I actually love the ability to use any note to trigger it. It's quite convenient. Another thing that's interesting, you can see this as a bug or a feature, is If you put in more than one note at the same time, then it will advance more than one step. Like let's say you put in a 3-note chord, it will advance 3 steps. 2 notes, it'll advance 2 steps. I personally think there should be an option where you can choose whether you want that behavior or not. I think it would be useful to also just have a chord moving things forward 1 step, no matter how many notes are in the chord. And of course, you can also, just play this with your keyboard. So, here, I'm just playing any note. I mean, I can play all the same note, it doesn't matter, right? Or I can, play other notes, whatever, it doesn't matter, because I've got it set to any note. So, that is really nice thing. It just allows your sequences to be very organic. And what can be nice is if you have 2 of these set up and one is just advancing using, it's inbuilt advancing, and the other one is triggered by your notes. Like for example here, let me just take this off so it's no longer being triggered by that Fugue Machine rubato, and it's just going to be triggered by keyboard. And so now, this one is being advanced by Fugue Machine rubato, and the other one, this one is being advanced by my notes here on the AUM keyboard. Okay. Now, over here, let's just switch the instrument out. So here, elastic osc. So this is the same 2 instances. See here, that resizing is not perfect either. So difference here is if we go to settings, I don't have trigger advance on, right? So here, this instance is using triplet notes, triplet 16ths. And this one here, this is using what? Also triplets. Actually, maybe it's the same actually. Yes, this is 8th triplets. So I really like, when I'm using this kind of sequencer, I really like to make pairs of sequences and I just give them names like part A and part B. So let's listen to a couple of examples of those. So here's another one. This is what C major part A. And so then the other one that I'll bring in a second, let's see. So this is C major part A. And this one, C major part B. So here what I did was I copied the part A and then I transposed it up a little bit, and I made sure that scale lock was on when I transposed so that the transposition would stay within the scale. I'll show you that later. And this one is dotted, the other one's straight or something maybe. Yeah, this one's straight, yeah. So this B harmonic minor part A and B. Okay. Okay, let's go back to this one. And I might just change back to piano tech for a minute. I'll just bring this down a little bit. So you can generate sequences in this, or you can dial them in manually, right? Or you can tweak them manually. So, you open up a new instance, and okay, we have this here. Now let's just send this in to piano tech. So, new instance. If we pop into create here, you'll see that by default it's set to C major scale. So if I start dragging on these, all the notes that it's offering me will be in C major scale. Right? So here we're looking at the note view. Here we have velocity. So you just drag to adjust the velocity for individual steps, right? This is not working with trackpad. That's another thing the developer needs to fix. Yeah, it's only working with finger. I do find some apps come out like that. I guess people are not testing it with a mouse or a trackpad, maybe, I don't know. Anyway, it's working fine with finger. So drag to adjust the velocity there. Mute, so we can add mutes. Right? Now again, you can generate all this, we'll look at that later. Slide, I think this is sort of glide for mono synths or something. This is not mono, so it's not going to make any difference at all. And there's tie. That's also making no difference here. Maybe they need to be the same note. Let's see. Or maybe it's a bug. Like, look at these. These are both C3. Let me see. I'm actually not 100% sure. Do I have to press tie on the second one or what? Let's see. Okay, yeah, piano's not actually ideal for demoing that tie, because that is working. I have used it before. Let's switch back to Elastic Osc for that. This is not set up yet to take the MIDI from this, so let's put that in. See there? It's working fine. It's not good to demo that sort of thing with a plucked instrument. Yeah. Okay, so that's ties. Let's just switch back to this. So I'll press the note view again. And here we can transpose everything down an octave. Or down a semitone. And if we want that to still be locked to scale, we need to adjust that in settings. We'll see that in a minute. Okay, so here, up an octave, up another octave, and then move the steps left or right. So if I press this A3 step that value will move into this step before it. Right? So backwards or forwards, those. Now, if you press selection, if I press selection and then I tap here, I'm now selecting some notes. And now if I go in and change the velocity here, it'll be changed for all of those selected notes, right? Like that. Now, hang on, how the hell do I get out of it? Oh yeah, so to get out of this selection, I just have to press all steps again. So if we're on the note page, for example, and I go to selection and let me select two notes. So this is C3 and this is A3. And now let's see what happens when I drag up. So do you see now this has become D3 and this has also been locked to D3. So I suggested to Joe, it would be good if this had a relative mode. You know, say I select two steps and they have different values. When I then drag up, the values shift relatively instead of both being changed to the same value. I think that behavior could be useful, but it's also useful to have the relative behavior that I mentioned just now. No undo and redo, by the way, either, which is annoying. So what was this? This was an A3 again. Okay, let me go back to all steps. So this is another thing as well that can really trip you up. Like I'm trying to drag this down and it's not letting me. So that's something that you have to adjust in this create page, I think it is. So let's move on to that now. Oh, there's another thing I should mention actually as well. So if we're on all steps and you double tap a step, this is also maybe not working with trackpad. Let me see. I know it is. That's working with trackpad. So here it pulls up a page for step 1. Edit step 1, and here we can edit the note value. Here, velocity, and adjust the mutes, slide, and tie, all just on this step. So, you know, that's just an alternative to having to scroll through or having to click through these different tabs, you know? Okay, create. Okay, create. So here we have that inspector that we just looked at that you can get also by double tapping, okay? And then here the create page, pattern length. Also, the type of pattern it's using, forward, reverse, snake, ping pong, or random. And here, the note length, 16th, 8th, quarter, half, and a bar. It's strange to me that the dotted and triplet is in the settings. I think it would be much easier if it was just in here, to be honest. But that is in the settings you see here, straight, dotted, and triplet. I definitely think that should be changed. That should just be, it should just be in here with these maybe. So pattern length. So one thing I noticed, you know, you get a lot of this sort of thing, and I would prefer if you didn't. I'd like it if you could change the pattern length without that happening. Let's see, you know, if you see here when I change this, the playhead is all jumping around. I think that if I have, say, a 16-step pattern and, you know, the playhead's down here somewhere and I change it to 15, it should not interfere with playhead position. I think there are other sequencers that act like that. Maybe I'm wrong, I don't know, maybe you can't do that, but I'm pretty sure that there are. Let me know in the comments. But yeah, I mean, that, you know, it can be interesting if you want it, but let's be honest, most of the time you're not. So this pattern length is not really designed for adjusting live, I feel. And when I say live, you know, I mean, I don't just mean live performance, like probably very few of us are performing live, but what I'm just talking about is just, you know, enjoying tinkering with this in your own home. You don't want that sort of thing happening, you know? You want everything to be musical, and that's interfering with the musicality, so that could be improved as far as I'm concerned. So pattern length is a really interesting thing to play around with. You know, if you do the kind of paired setups that I talked about earlier, just, you know, experiment with changing the length of one. It can be pretty interesting. Let's see this one, for example. So now we have this one on a very short pattern. So, you know, that is something that's really fun to tweak live, but not if you're going to get this sort of thing happening all the time, right? So, room for improvement there. So, this is snake pattern, right? Here, just a normal forward pattern. Gets to the end, goes back to the start. Here, reverse. Ping pong. Random. So let's just put it to ping pong. Scale and key. Now, unfortunately, again, you know, there might be technical reason, but if I change this, the notes will not change. This is only setting the scale and key before you, you know, press randomize or before you start dragging, right? So it's not going to magically quantize everything into that scale. I mean, I suppose that could be messy anyway, to be honest, because how's it really going to decide, you know, which notes should be quantized where? I don't know. You know, there are always problems with doing that kind of quantization. It might change the melody in ways that you don't really want. Anyway, just to mention that. Now, if you remember, I was trying to drag down lower than C3 here and it wasn't letting me. That's because the octave range is set as such, minimum 3. So I have to pull that down if I want to be able to drag this down more. And you see now, it's letting me drag that down more, right? Nice. So minimum and maximum slider. I'm just going to save this. Let's say C Maj mellow. Okay, so now if I press random notes, it's going to generate random notes in a C major scale. Now, the thing is, of course, whether this really sounds like C major will depend. You know, if you have very few C notes in there, and if the thing that you kind of perceive as the start of the sequence is not a C, it's probably not going to sound like C major, actually. You know, that's starting on a D. So, I mean, you can always then just go in and drag that down to C. And that now probably sounds like it's in C major more. So we've got major and a bunch of other ones unknown. What are all those? I have not even gone down through all of those. That's the first time I'm seeing that. That's definitely not right. What I also said to Joe was, like, seriously, I really think in 2025, every single goddamn MIDI app with scales absolutely needs custom scales. I'm not sure if he's going to add that or not. I can't remember. I don't think he said that he definitely would. I don't think so. So if you care about that, it's always good. The more people ask for something from a developer, the more likely it is to be added, right? So we have, apart from random notes, we also have random velocities, right? So let me just go onto the velocity page and click here. And now it's just randomizing those velocities within the minimum and maximum range set here. Now, if I tap the Mutes tab and tap here, Random Mutes, we'll get some mutes in here. Okay, and how many mutes can be generated will depend on this mute density slider. Just tap those mutes to remove them manually. So here, look, I'm tapping random mutes, but density set to 0, so there's not going to be any mutes created. Okay, then random slides. Again, the slide is not going to work on this anyway, the synth/piano. Random ties. Okay, well, we've looked at that already. You understand what it does. So let's go into settings, straight, dotted, and triplet options. MIDI, select your output channel. Okay, so transpose, scale lock. So this is an important one, right? So let's go to the notes page. So scale lock is currently not on. So if I put these up one, let's look at the C, for example, and see what note we get. So you see now we've got a C sharp, which is not in the C major scale, right? So it now sounds completely out of that key and scale, which you might want, you might want that. That can be cool as well. So it's good it has the option. So let me put it back down again, and let me turn on scale lock. And now it should transpose but lock everything. So it's all still a major scale. Oh, hang on, what did I do there? Okay. So let's see. D, F, G, up one, E, G, A, right. So all quantized to C major scale, major scale. And here, trigger advance, turn this on if you want to use external MIDI to move the sequence forward, as I discussed earlier in the video. You also have in-app help here. So, let me know your thoughts in the comments, guys. I hope this was useful for you. And coming up to New Year, if I don't make a video before then, Happy New Year, everyone. Take it easy.